You've heard plenty of inspiring rags to riches stories. But what about the ridiculous, mind-blowing stories of those who have fallen from the top? Today, we are rounding up 10 of the dumbest ex-billionaires who became broke, all thanks to a series of bad decisions and bad luck. Starting off this list is Patricia Kluge at number 10. A former heiress and model, Patricia was once married to Forbes' richest man in the US, John Kluge, whose personal wealth was once $5 billion. 9 years later, the high-profile couple divorced, leaving Patricia with a settlement to the tune of $1 million per year, plus the lavish 23,000 square foot mansion and sprawling vineyards of the Albemarle Estate. Patricia turned the property into the Kluge Estate Winery and Vineyard, all while entering the real estate industry and taking out a $65 million loan to build luxury houses. Unfortunately for her, the 2008 banking and housing market crash forced her to default on her loans and sell her once $100 million estate for a measly $6.5 million to Donald Trump. Patricia filed for bankruptcy in 2011. But not all billionaires who went bankrupt are because of bad luck in the market. Some are because of more sinister reasons, just like Alberto Villar. At number 9. At its height, Alberto's once successful company, Amerindo Investment Advisors, had an estimated $1 billion net worth. Together with his business partner, Gary Tanaka, Villar amassed billions through the investment firm until a violent stock market sell-off hurt the company's financial status in the year 2000. 5 years later, Villar and Tanaka were discovered to have been guilty of securities fraud and were arrested. More charges were made for stock fraud, wire fraud, and money laundering, and in 3 years, the two were put behind bars for a 10-year prison sentence. Another victim of the 2008 banking crisis makes it to the list, Björgolfur Gudmundsson at number 8. Among any other nation in the world, Iceland was the most affected by the 2007-2008 banking crisis. It all started when the country's 3 major banks decided to default on their loans, plunging Iceland into an economic collapse for 3 years. Gudmundsson, who was the second richest man in Iceland, a shipping executive, brewer, and soccer team owner, owned a hefty percentage of the shares for one of those banks, Landsbanki. In less than a year since the financial crisis hit, his personal wealth went from $1.1 billion to zero. Youch! Now that's not where his bad luck ends. He was also later charged for embezzlement and was sentenced to a year in prison. His son, Thor, helped him regain his billionaire status, only for Björgolfur to declare bankruptcy again before the year ended. Speaking of wealthy families, next up at number 7, Vijay Mallya. Born from a wealthy family, Vijay Mallya was destined to be a billionaire. Also known as the King of Good Times, he changed the family business brand to adapt to India's younger generation. Their family had several companies, but Vijay's leading venture was Kingfisher Airlines, which helped him obtain a $1.5 billion net worth under his belt. Unfortunately, although luxurious and pleasing on papers, Kingfisher Airlines did not return a profit. Its CEO and the rest of the team did not attempt to turn things around, and the debts kept rolling. It was one bad decision after another from that point on. Purchasing 10 additional planes, which were not delivered, acquiring the failing airline Air Deccan in a failed attempt to launch international flights, unpaid employees and creditors on his heels, Kingfisher Airline, which once held the second largest share of India's domestic flights, was closed the following year and Vijay was left with no choice but to flee to the UK. To this day, he is trying to evade extradition to India to avoid facing charges. Clawing her way to the half mark is the real-life Catwoman, Jocelyn Wildenstein at number 6. This larger-than-life American socialite, who is known for her extensive facial cosmetic surgeries, which she consistently denies, was once married to the late billionaire art dealer, Alec Wildenstein. Following the couple's 1999 divorce, Jocelyn walked away with a whopping $2.5 billion in the settlement, $100 million more each year, plus 2 paintings. One that turned out to be a forgery and another that sold for a fraction of its original value. After she used up all her divorce money on her insanely extravagant lifestyle, from a monthly phone bill worth $5,000 to $500,000 each year on food and wine, Catwoman declared total bankruptcy in 2018, stating that she's now got $0 in her checking account. She insists that her bankruptcy wasn't because of overspending, but because of a faulty divorce settlement. She is now on the prowl for a lawyer who can get her everything she feels she deserves for her lifetime. A young self-made billionaire falls from grace at number 5, Elizabeth Holmes. Once upon a time, in 2015, Elizabeth Holmes was every woman's idol. She topped Forbes' list of self-made women as both the wealthiest and the youngest on that list. With a personal net worth of $4.5 billion and her blood testing startup, Theranos, valued at $9 billion. The 19-year-old dropout from Stanford turned into a genius American inventor, and everyone was loving her success story. She became a star on the rise in Silicon Valley and landed a spot on Time's 100 Most Influential People. But her rise to fame and fortune was cut short after it emerged that Theranos, which promised to do multiple blood tests rapidly with only a small amount of blood, wasn't everything she claimed it to be. Several federal investigations and lawsuits later, her net worth plummeted from $4.5 billion to zero. To add insult to injury, she also made it to Fortune's list of the world's most disappointing leaders. Talk about embarrassing. Another self-made billionaire lands the number 4 spot, Sean Quinn. Sean Quinn began his journey to wealth by extracting pebbles from his family's farm, washing it, and selling it to local builders. He founded the Quinn Group, which includes an insurance company, an international hotel chain, a power generation company, a glass company, and a cement company. Between 2005 and 2007, he made an increasingly hefty investment in a bank that would be the cause of his downfall, the Anglo-Irish Bank. After focusing massive funding on the bank, the Irish government took over, which meant that Sean had just totally lost control of the assets that were once his. We're talking about 2.8 billion euros or 3.22 billion US dollars. The takeover sparked rallies attended by thousands of people in 2012, not only because of sympathy but also because of the jobs he provided in the area. On 11/11/2011, Sean Quinn, the richest man in Ireland and a local hero, filed for bankruptcy. Bernie Ebbers. From CEO of the US second largest long-distance telecommunications company to a convicted fraudster, Bernie Ebbers is one CEO who just had to make it to the list. Despite his success as the chief of WorldCom, the company collapsed in 2002 following revelations of an $11 billion accounting fraud that sent him behind bars. The massive fraudulent accounting practice was deemed to make the company profitable when it wasn't attracting investors and gaining stockholders only for its financial gain. Since his conviction in September 2006, Ebbers' health declined, resulting in multiple hospitalizations. After having served 13 out of his 25-year sentence, he was released in December 2019. Over a month after his emancipation, he died on February 2, 2020, due to health issues. An even more heartbreaking story makes it to number 2, Adolf Merkel. Unable to accept the tragic end of his life's work, Adolf Merkel chose an equally tragic end for himself. Owner of Germany's largest pharmaceutical wholesaler, Phoenix Pharmahandel, founder of the generic drug maker Radiopharm, and shareholder of Heidelberger Cement, Adolf Merkel committed suicide and was found dead on railroad tracks after becoming a financial casualty. Due to the financial crisis, Merkel lost an estimated $12.8 billion in 2008, including shares in Volkswagen. The final attempts to apply for a loan to salvage whatever was left had been made impossible as shares on all his companies declined soon after the news of his death was known to the public. Finally, at number 1 is the man who lost the most, all because of greed, Eike Batista. Once known as Brazil's wealthiest person, Eike Batista lost $35 billion in less than 365 days. How? By listening to oil executives. Predictions of an insurmountable ROI for oil exploration in a land that had never been explored excited Batista to take the leap and sign that investment. From building companies that he claims to be idiot-proof, Batista watched his empire fall one by one. OGX, the oil firm, failed to produce the projected 10.8 billion oil barrels that it promised to. The decline of OGX took a toll not only on his investment in this company, but also wiped out the rest of his wealth. thanks to his hunger to be wealthier and bank loans. He tried to survive by liquidating some assets to pay back. Still, investors bailed out, his companies were all drowning in debt, and underperforming wells left him with no other choice but to declare bankruptcy. The man who was once swimming in wealth lost it all and now has a net worth of negative $1.2 billion. Heesh. Of these 10, who do you think deserved their bad luck the most? Tell us about it in the comment section below.